Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Green Team of the Legendarium. I'm your host, BefuddledPanda, and joining me today is Yetti Beats,
The ultimate fan. Hello.
Mr. Anderson,
A fan. Hello.
and Jingles.
The cynical fan.
Ooh, the
No.
cynical fan.
The
Audio-
ceiling
hold on.
fan.
Yeah, the ceiling fan.
Ceiling
There you go.
fan.
I was like, I don't know what else I can describe myself as for a fan.
The
God,
mediocre fan.
the mediocre fan, yeah.
Also
All right.
present.
Yeah.
Okay, today's episode is something we haven't done in a bit, and it's a topics episode. As you can tell from the title of the episode, we're going to be talking about WorldCon, the Hugos, and Fandom. And honestly, more than that. But I needed a short title or a snazzy title. So, a quick overview of what each of those three things are, because perhaps not everybody is familiar with every single one of those things. So, quick overview. WorldCon. It is the World Science Fiction Convention, which started in 1939, before World War II. Hugos are the literary award that is voted upon by members of the World Science Fiction and Fantasy Society, and the award ceremony takes place during each annual WorldCon. Lastly, fandom simply refers to the culture of fans and the experience of being a fan of something. In our case, science fiction and fantasy. Specifically, we're going to be talking a bit more about books since that's what it is, the written word. But honestly, any media of science fiction and fantasy. To start our discussion, I'm actually going to have us start with fandom because that's really the foundation for all the rest. So I thought, okay, well, why don't we all just share our thoughts of what fandom is, what is a fan, what makes a person a fan of something as opposed to just being a person who likes something, and maybe talk about different levels of fandom. So anybody want to start? Yetti?
I guess the first thing I think of when we talk about fandom, whether it's fair or not, for me is kind of a cynical idea. Is
No,
Oh,
that's
no.
Jingles. Jingles is the cynical
Yeah,
fan.
you can't take my bit.
I don't mean to steal the ceiling fan. Jingles is the cynical take, but yeah, just the word fandom now, where you think oh, the Star Wars fandom, the Game of Thrones fandom. My first thought, just fair or not, is that immediately it's oh, these are people that are too obsessed with something and that ruin a good thing.
Okay.
That's but that's how it feels now. I don't know if that's how I actively participate in fandom, but just the word I feel has already for whatever reason in the past however many years has taken on kind of just this annoying term.
Yeah.
Except for me, obviously.
Of
I'm obviously the
obviously.
positive parts of fandoms. But yeah, I guess it's just something that you kind of create. I don't know how to say this without being a dick, but you create your whole personality around in a sense for hours throughout the day is how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is especially when we're talking about anything that's communicated in a general sense, the fandom definitely takes on that bigger role of the extreme fans, right? People that are incredibly dedicated. But I personally, I think really if you like something, that is kind of all you need. The ticket for entry is that you like the thing. And do you how you choose to participate and to what extent you choose to participate is all extra. For me, I think I've personal experience. I love Marvel comic books and I have for a long time. And for a long time, especially in high school, I did not really know people who even knew who Iron Man or the Guardians of the Galaxy were, right? And then Marvel obviously hit in a big way.
Oh yeah.
And I thought I had people I could talk to in depth about these things.
Oh
And that was
no.
not true. People loved Iron Man. They did not know what the heck I was talking about, right? But they were still fans. I think I'd still count that as a fan.
Uh-huh.
And of course that's kind of evolved throughout the years. But yeah, Yeti, I totally agree with you. I think like in the general sense, we are talking usually probably in those upper ends of the spectrum about
The
people and their
hardcore.
dedication, like the hardcore. But I think it's a very broad term.
Yeah.
From what I remember, and I can't remember where I heard this, so citation needed, I could be hallucinating this. I think the word fan came from fanatic. Like it was
Hmm.
originally
Mhm.
meant to refer to someone who was very much into something, who very much liked something. It wasn't just like a casual, oh, I saw Iron Man and I liked it. It was someone who knew, had issues 1 through 1024 of Iron Man and knew everything about it. Like that was a fan
Mhm.
because there was that degree of being super into something.
I think you're right. I did read an article now that I can't remember it. So if I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But it was also kind of a meant as kind of an insult, not necessarily a complimentary term. But over time, obviously, it's changed and evolved and kind of goes like back and forth. And for example, like there's a love hate relationship between creators and their fans. And one of Tormig's question is like thoughts on toxic fandoms and fan quote unquote ownership of authors and cancel culture. And Kip asks like, "Oh, what about parasocial relationships and fandom?" And I think to your point, Mr. Anderson, is that these are people who care very deeply about whatever that thing is and have really internalized it as being part of who they are. To Yeti's point of like that has become part of their identity, their personality, and I think it's fascinating. Like, I'm sure there are ton of psych papers and, social science research kind of papers written on this. But it is as a person who does consider themselves to be a fan of certain things, whether that's like growing up, it was Harry Potter. Like I went quite deep into it, even writing what, people would consider fanfic. We call it a movie script that, me and my friends, decided to try to parody. So, to me, it was like it was something that I could relate to and connect with on a deeper level than just like, "Oh, yeah, I enjoyed that thing." It's like I could play with it. I wanted to engage with the material in, a deeper way.
Yeah. Sometimes I want to attribute a lot of fandom to millennials, even though it's not true, but I'd love to make the argument where it's like, I think I
No.
brought it up on a different episode. Uh, oh, I can't remember what our episode was talking about here, but it's like at a certain point, like our generation, like millennials, just didn't want to grow up. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like
sure.
and I don't mean this totally negatively, but like, people my age in my 30s and stuff have like Totoro tattoos, or you know what I mean, or Marvel or DC comic stuff, or and it's like things that normally before our age people would age out of, and now for some reason this fandom just has, whether it's because our films has a hold on the film thing, but like we just don't grow up. And I'm not saying that's a negative thing. Like I love watching Studio Ghibli movies. I'll watch it into my 70s. You know what I mean? But there's something
Mhm.
about where we make these things from our childhood, our personality, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think I
Oh
think
yeah.
Jingles was on an episode where we talked about this, where it's like that was such a huge thing of my childhood that like I've carried that throughout every year of my life and 36 years alive, where it's like Donatello is my dude. And like I'll still
Yeah.
get
Right.
offended at someone to say he like sucks. I'm like, what? And like it's like I have 401k. Like, why do I care? But I do. like, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there was some shift with fandoms where it's just your personality takes hold into that.
Mhm.
That's what. Don't worry, Eddie. That person's probably boring and likes Leonardo.
It's, uh, it's not someone I don't want to be a friend with. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want. No. Yeah. I agree. I as the person you can't see right now, but is surrounded by literal toys.
I didn't
Um,
want to say action
Wait, wait, wait.
figures, but
Okay, hold on, because we are an
dolls.
audio podcast. Just visualize, listeners. shelves and shelves of action figures. That's
And
what
books.
Jingles and books. That's what Jingles is surrounded by.
Yeah. And so, I can speak to some personal experience as to why I probably developed in this way.
Uh-huh.
Other than, the fact that I completely love these things, but I also, at a young age, my partner and I very much decided we were not going to have kids. We decided that, we had, we were going to get a house. We got all of our stuff in order. We have jobs that were very stable, and I had a lot of money to spend. I was very bored. I was like, well, I love Transformers, I love Marvel, I love books. Oh, these are all things I can use that money on, like that expendable income, which I can see for a lot of people may be considered sometimes maybe a bad thing that we are spending so much on frivolous things, right?
Mm.
But it was just very easy for me to get invested in those things that I appreciated from my childhood and dig a little deeper into them. So, I mean, I don't see it as necessarily a negative thing, but yeah.
So, first of all, Star Trek conventions predate millennials by a couple of decades. So, I
Very
reject
true.
that argument outright. But I think the thing that our generation had was the internet,
Yeah.
right? As we were kind of becoming adolescents, that hit, and that brought these communities together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of
Forums.
changed forums. Oh, what was that? RSS feeds. I mean, all that early stuff. It like that brought us together in a way that people didn't have before. And I think it became easier to become and stay a fan of something longer when you have other people there to encourage and discuss it with.
Mm-hmm.
And then as for spending money on this stuff, I think there's a lot worse things you could spend your money on, especially nowadays. So
Yeah.
enjoy your action figures. That's all I can say.
Thanks, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back, so, I was in high school when, like, the, Walden Media Narnia films were coming out, and I got really invested and, found Narnia forums and, like, that is, like, a whole 'nother if I don't know, I know I'm dating myself, but most of our listeners are around our age. There is just a whole subculture in each of the fandoms. There are a lot of similarities across fandoms, but then there are just like specific subcultures that have developed, and it's just fascinating how, you know, you could be so entertained for hours talking to people who you will never meet in person, but you all have this shared common interest. And you're bonding over it and you're checking up on each other, whether it's a daily basis or a weekly basis, and you build friendships. And you play silly games, you do a lot of, like, pretend it is a lot of play pretend, especially in forums when, "I brought over this cake. I ate this cake," whatever. Okay, now I'm showing some anyway. So, I think back on it now, it's like, wow, like, that seems really silly, but at that time, it brought a lot of joy.
Yeah. I mean, they're like you guys said, they're kind of not a substitute, but a parallel to just communities, obviously. And nowadays, I mean, as you can see with our thing, there's fandoms for podcasts. I mean, I know
Mhm.
I'm in like 3 different discords for podcasts, and it's like, you have little communities that you found that, you normally wouldn't. So it's not just pop culture things. I mean, there's fandoms. It can contract, but it also can expand. It's like there's so
Mhm.
many things that fandoms could be. It's such a broad thing. But even though our mind first goes to the toxic big ones, but you could have a fandom of, I don't know, sourdough bread
Yes,
making.
actually, I
You
mean,
really
like,
could.
blogs, right? Like, whole community of sourdough bread makers sharing tips and checking up on each other, like, "How's your rise today?" Funny thing, just a side tangent, sports. Sports fandom, like, that is one of the most prominent kinds of fandom that we see, and, sometimes they do get flack for it, but a lot of times it's also very acceptable. And we're heading into football season right now, and this is the time of year when our Discord server starts attracting people thinking that it's a fantasy football server, and they get disappointed. However, this year we actually are running fantasy football.
There you go.
So, anyway.
I've always been fascinated by what in the name the Legendarium triggers this must be football.
Yeah.
I don't
They
know.
look up fantasy podcast, and then here they are.
Well, yes, because when they think of fantasy, they're just thinking, oh, it's got to be fantasy football.
They don't do all of the associations. Yeah.
Which, I
Hilarious.
mean, if somebody who's listening is like, well, I'm also a football fan, I want to join it, you can still come. We have a whole sports channel.
I'm happy to mock your team.
Yes, Mr. Anderson?
We are a fandom of a podcast.
Uh-huh.
This whole thing is it started from fans of a completely different podcast.
Yes. It's a bit Inception-y. So, going back to toxic fandoms or cancel culture, parasocial relationships in fandom, I think, like, I get it when you've become so attached to this fictional character, fictional world that you've built up in your mind, right? You've added your own flair to it. And then the creator takes it in a different direction or whatever, right? That's just contradictory to what you have built up in your mind. It does feel like an attack on your identity when you're like at that level, and so like I get it, but something that and we'll talk about later when we talk about like conventions and WorldCon and stuff. Something that I really enjoy on social media, I know it's kind of weird to say, but one of the things that makes me happy is just seeing, in particular for me, authors engaging with each other on social media as just regular people. They're like posting about, this is what my garden is like today. These are my ducks. This is my cat, and then just like authors like commenting and liking and supporting each other, and they're just normal people. I think John Scalzi is one that is particularly active and is very just, he is a person, he tells it like it is, like he's not sugarcoating anything. It's just a good reminder that at the end of the day, like they are not deity. No matter how amazing their work is, they are still just individual humans.
Yeah, I think kind of relating to the parasocial relationship and something that I've witnessed at conventions, which maybe we can talk about a little bit more later, but as it relates to this, I have seen a pretty fascinating number of people who can only associate a specific actor with the one thing they really enjoyed
Uh,
about them. And it's interesting watching the disappointment as the person actually does register that maybe this person has other things they do besides this one role. Because we do, as we interact with celebrities and stuff at those conventions, we'll have very specific questions like,
Mhm.
try not to reveal any names here, but maybe there's like a really old actor who had did a movie 60 years ago, and that actor is asked what this character would do in this specific situation. The actor is 80 and he does not remember what it was like being in that role anymore. It is just one of the many roles that he has had.
Right.
And so his answer is incredibly blasé. Like it's just very boring.
Mhm.
And then I have seen like people like pursue the question in a different way, but they don't realize that they cannot get that answer again. Now but then on the other's coin, there are some actors who are totally invested in their one character that they know made them famous, right? And they will
Mhm.
give you those. So sometimes when you're interacting with the people who you idolize as creators, you're gonna you're gonna get such a weird mix of
Right.
things. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that's very fair. Okay, so we're kind of getting there now. So, I mean, I've already revealed some things about my participation in science fiction and fantasy fandom. What what specific fandoms did you grow up on and are currently you would consider to be a part of? What about Jingles? Do you want to start?
Oh man, how abstract are we getting with these?
What do you
Very
mean?
Like like
extremely.
Keep
I am a fan of the Legendarium podcast. Yeah.
keep Keep it PG, sir. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's a
Um,
given.
that's a given. Yeah. Let's see here. Some of my biggest fandoms are Star Wars, Transformers, pretty much any comic book, sci-fi, fantasy, movies. How could I forget my lovely movies? I
Just
love my
any
movies.
movie.
Yeah, just any movie. I am a cinephile. All right.
Yeah, you are.
Um, and then as far as big authors go that I really love, Stephen King, Kurt Vonnegut, Brandon Sanderson, but even then, okay, I am not at all the biggest Brandon Sanderson fan compared to some. We'll just go
It's
right out and
always a
say that.
spectrum. There's
Yeah,
always a
yeah,
bigger fan out there.
yeah. And then I love me some classics, so Dumas, Dickens. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm a big fan of lit in general. Made a
Nice.
whole career out of it. So
Amazing. Yetti?
It's funny that you say that, Jingles. It's like, so for an example, like I love movies too. Like I've watched movies since I came out of the womb. It felt like I was watching, Bruce Willis as a river cop in some dumb movie. Um, but it's like, yeah, I love horror movies. Like I love to watch horror movies, but I wouldn't consider myself like, if, like I'm a fan of horror movies, but there are some people that will watch horror movies from like January to December. Like that's
Mm,
all they watch. That's why they love movies, because they watch horror movies. So it's kind of the same thing as that Brandon Sanderson thing. It's like, yeah, like I'm a Sanderson fan. And I remember telling that to someone who worked at a Barnes and Noble, and they were like all in on the Cosmere, and they're like, oh, talking about the secret projects and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I kind of just read the Stormlight Archive books now, like, and they looked at me like I lied to them. They're like, you're not a they didn't say that, but they're like,
how dare
I thought
you?
you said you were a
Yeah.
fan. So it is weird where it's like, yeah, that's like kind of something I'm part of, but it's like also there's like there's a gap there where it's like I am, but I'm not. It's
mhm.
it's interesting, but yeah, movies definitely fantasy. My guys and gals are Robin Hobb, Joe Abercrombie, Robert Jackson Bennett. A little bit of science fiction. I love Stephen King. I grew up loving sports. I mean, I've tapered off a little bit just because, like, I don't know, how can you keep in your middle age? How can you keep up with like 4 different sports? It's like when I was a kid, I'd be all in on the Flyers, Phillies, Eagles, Sixers. I know every player. It'd be my waking life. And now it's like, my God, my memory is mush.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm blanking on Ninja Turtles. I mean, I love the Ninja Turtles, but also it's like, have you read every IDW comic of the Turtles? It's like,
Mhm.
oh no, I'm trying to
Poser.
keep up. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sir.
You don't even know that they all wore red bandanas. It's like, I don't know. I read The Last Ronin. I'm trying to stay up. I don't know. So it's just a weird thing, especially like I think we're all of the same age range. So it's kind of weird too, like staying as this fan. Like I feel like I'm like tapering off as like I can only be a casual fan of all these things. Like I can't be a
Mm,
hardcore in like anything. But yeah.
Just the idea of like having to be a casual fan of everything. That's a sentiment I've felt for so long, just because
yeah.
like it's just so hard to keep track of everything. And then you do go to places like the Discord where you see these people deep dive into these
Right.
people. Sorry, that sounds way more offensive than I meant it to be. but,
That's how
but
I
People.
you
think of
know,
everyone in our Discord.
yeah. But you see, you see people just like diving so far into things and telling you like, back on this page, this person was referenced, and I'm just like, okay, cool, great, love it. You keep doing that for me, so I can see it, and then we're good. Yeah.
I think it's fine to be a casual fan, and for those only listening, I put that in quotes. You're allowed to just watch the Marvel movies and say you're a Marvel fan. You
Mhm.
don't
Absolutely.
need to read 100 years worth of comics to consider yourself a fan. And I think the same thing with that, because we all were just saying about ourselves, right? Oh, I'm only a casual fan of this. No, you're a fan. You like it. That's allowed.
I think that,
I just
yeah,
want to
I,
throw
I
it out
didn't
there.
I think that's true, but I do think at a certain point there's like a barrier to communication where it's like
Yeah.
if you're trying to connect with
That's
someone,
true.
you can't go as deep as they want
Yeah.
you to on something, and it's like you hit just like a limit, but it doesn't take away from your fan
Yeah.
card or anything, but it's just
Right.
like, yeah.
Yeah, so I really started with Star Wars, and it kind of took off from there. And then from there, it was Douglas Adams, Tolkien, Kurt Vonnegut. Video games was always sprinkled throughout there, and it just kind of has grown from there.
And Honestly, I love you for your Star Wars knowledge. Just being able to like consult my personal Star Wars encyclopedia.
When we were dating, she asked me for a list of Star Wars things to read, and I gave it to her. She completely ignored that until the podcast went to do
So
Star
the
Wars. Now
entire list.
suddenly she's buying every Star Wars thing she can get.
And we're following that list to the letter, right? I guarantee.
um
Truce Bakura was on there, yeah.
Didn't you read one of the worst
Definitely
ones?
on there. I definitely recommended Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I was like, oh yes, you should read this one.
This is
no
pinnacle.
comment. Hey, I intended to read all the ones on your list, okay?
While you were dating, did Drew McCaffrey have a gun to your head to put Revenge of the Sith? Is that?
Oh dang.
I was just saying you covered it on the podcast. So must have been
No.
high on your list.
That
The
that would
lukewarm
that came from a
coverage.
different place. This is gonna sound so weird, but yes, there is like the fictional thing that's created and I'm a fan of. But I have found myself in retrospect, I think I'm more of a fan of the person that created the thing. Like I mentioned before, like the Harry Potter thing, that was like truly, a fan of Harry Potter, a fan of Narnia, getting pretty deep there. But it has evolved into how much am I sharing on this podcast?
Oh,
I think my relationship with fandom is that I did not know what fandom was until I saw it in other people. So like I grew up watching Sailor Moon and Power Rangers and in the moment I didn't think of myself as like I'm a fan of Sailor Moon, I'm a fan of Power Rangers. I'm just like I enjoy watching this thing and talking about it with, my cousins or whatever. And now thinking back on it I'm like, "Oh, okay, like I was a fan." And then it wasn't until like middle school, high school when certain people within my friend group got really into certain things, which Johnny Depp, Tim Burton, and Danny Elfman were some of those things. And it
You hung out with a lot of emo kids? Is that
yeah.
no, that's the
Black
thing.
Clue.
We weren't even no goth, no emo, like, it wasn't even that, it was I cannot explain it, okay? I think it's more of the whimsy kind of nature of all of them, and we watched so many Johnny Depp movies as a joke for, like, somebody's birthday, like, we bought her a Johnny Depp biography that somehow ended up in my possession even though it was not meant for me.
Allegedly.
Just imagine all these middle schoolers watching Blow at a sleepover.
Oh, man. I think in
some Don Juan?
around that time is when, like, Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one came out, so I think that sparked a lot of it, and Jack Sparrow as a character was quite interesting. But where I was going with this is thinking about, like, what fandom am I a part of, like, I think I'm more a fan of the people even, like, authors whose books I haven't read, like, I'm just a fan of that person, and it's a really weird thing, so
Yeah, I understand that. There's definitely, especially to the author's point, there's authors I haven't read, but like just I've met them at cons or seen them talk at cons. I'm like, oh, this person's dope. Like I have no
Yeah.
interest in their book, but like I will support them in any other way as I can. But it's funny. I can't. That's so foreign to me, Panda. That like that first part where you said like you watch these things, but like, I wouldn't call myself a fan. Like in Power Rangers, when I was in like elementary school, I would put my best friend in a headlock for saying the green Power Ranger was cooler than the red Power Ranger. That's how invested I was. I was like, you're wrong, and you need to admit it now. So I can't. I literally can't imagine passively why thinking that
Uh,
at a young age.
yeah, I don't know. I guess all that to say is each person experiences fandom differently. Okay, we have a question from Lammy Lambs. Which fandom has the worst fans?
Oh
Whether you
boy.
want to give it a real answer or not, up
If
to
you
you.
dig deep enough, they all do.
They all do, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
My scapegoat is the larger the fandom, statistically speaking, the more often you're gonna get bad people in it. So
Yeah.
Um, so think of any of the super large ones, Star Wars. Gonna have some awful people there. Which I don't. I say all that. I kind of joking. I don't know if it's entirely fair to say that it's the worst fandom just because there are people I disagree with on there, and sometimes because of how vocal they are.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, anyone that gets big enough, it's not that it's bad. It's just you have kind of extreme people. I would say Star Wars is the worst. They actively bullied movies into changing for the worse. And I think, whether that's, they're, you can't like, I guess, give them all the credit, but I will, bad credit on doing something like that. Yeah, no, the Zack Snyder fans, they're pretty bunch of
Zack
schmoes,
Snyder.
I think. However many
Yeah.
aren't bots. I don't I don't know. But I mean, but it's like you don't want to be too judgmental because it's just like at the end of the day, it's just people who are passionate about something they really like. And I guess the clear answer is like any fandom that like bullies or, any
Yeah.
portion of a fan. And that could
Right.
be that could be literally any fandom. Even big or small. It doesn't have to be big, but that you can get someone ganging it up. Like you're just at WorldCon where I know it's kind of a big fandom where someone said George R. R. Martin, you're going to be to his face, you're going to die,
Right.
before the books do. I mean, it's like anything can provoke that response, sadly, from people. So, I mean, you're going to, what are you going to do? Get rid of fandom? It's just kind of the nature of where we are.
Yeah.
Now that I'm recalling, I feel like the one thing that I've seen that I found kind of unforgivable was do y'all remember Rick and Morty when Rick had like an obsession with the McDonald's Szechuan sauce that was exclusive for the Mulan movie? And
Yes.
like that was so popular that McDonald's brought the Szechuan sauce back, but in limited quantities, and it ran out. And the internet was plagued with videos of people acting out in McDonald's because they were not getting the Szechuan sauce.
Wait, really? Okay, I
Yeah,
definitely missed this moment.
yeah. That was like probably one of the worst moments in fandom.
Oh, wow.
So I agree with you say about the bigger fandoms. I think those smaller fandoms of something that's considered intellectual, those
Mm,
tend to get
Oh, interesting.
very, very toxic. And I think like that Rick and Morty thing is one of them where it's all these people who think they're in on this joke, in on this thing. And it's very gatekeepery and very, I don't know how to describe it. It gets weird fast.
mm.
But then in contrast, you get stuff like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fandom, which is just people saying 42 and talking about pals all the time, and nobody cares because it's whatever.
It's become more of a just part of society, honestly, part of our culture. On the positive side, Soul asks, which fandom do you think is cool slash fun, but haven't dove into it yet? Any thoughts there?
Like we personally haven't dove into it or
Yeah.
just society hasn't? Good question. Yeah, I guess for me, just as we were getting older, running out of time of like time to do things. For me personally, it's like some video game fandoms I feel
Hmm.
like would be interesting to I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of toxicness in that, but at least looking at the gaming channels and our Discord and things like that, I sometimes have FOMO of, how kind of invested a lot of people are in these games and like the releases and things like that. So maybe even gaming in a general sense, I wish I had the time to really
Mm.
I mean, when Skyrim released, I remember like not talk. I locked myself in like my room for like a week when that happened. Like didn't do anything, and I miss like I remember being on Reddit all the time, looking at what everyone else was doing, playing, and things like that. So I would like to get back into gaming kind of fandom, but and like PAX always sounds fun, and it's right around PAX East, I think it is, or something is in
Yeah.
Boston. I think it's kind of close to me. So, but I just have too many between books, movies, and
Too many interests.
yeah,
You
it's
gotta
just
you
like
gotta
can't
choose
make.
like two and work with them, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of on the same vein. I've never like to be perfectly honest, I think this Discord is probably like the only internet culture that I really know outside of groups that I interact with that are with in real life friends. So I would be interested in trying to branch out to that and do like an MMO fandom,
Mm.
like Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft or some of those, because I've just never invested any time in those. And I've seen like some really positive things come out of those for people.
Mhm.
So I'd be curious to see what it's like. At the same time, though, it's kind of the same problem Yeti's having. Like, I just don't have time to knock 12 hours into an MMO every night. All right. Like, it's just not happening that way. So,
Yeah.
We can merge these and we can all play Elder Scrolls Online together so that we get our Skyrim
Mr.
fix, our
Anderson's
MMO
got it.
fix.
Yeah.
I don't chase a fandom necessarily. Like, I have things I want to read. I have movies I want to watch. I never go into something thinking, oh, I'm going to want to engage on this on a deeper level. That just kind of happens sometimes. So I don't know if I have a good answer for that necessarily.
Okay.
Other
That's
than
fair.
I'll find something and I'll be like, ooh, I have to get more into this.
That's what I was just gonna say, Mr. Anderson. It's like sometimes you don't even expect to like walk into fandoms. Like candidly, we recently got Saint Bernard puppy,
Mhm.
and now like I'm in the world of like Saint Bernard fandom and just learning about like these communities and like things like that. But like I never would have guessed, I'd be into. I didn't look for be like, hey, I should be into Saint Bernards. It's just like my next level in life. I never thought that, but that here we are, and you kind of move into that. It is interesting though. There is like really an age thing to this too, where you're not excluded from fandoms, but when you're young, I feel like is because you have so much time to get into fandoms that I wish we had like an annoying 18-year-old here with us on this episode to like have their take, where it's like you just have so many opportunities and so much free time to kind of go into whatever direction your heart desires.
They can tell us about their Labubu hunting to do.
Oh.
I just started seeing about Labubus. I'm out. I'm just too old. The last thing I knew about was Minecraft. People throwing popcorn at the TV. I was like, and chicken jockey. That's like where I'm at.
That's what, to be fair, Yeti, I learn about most of this because I speak to like 18 to 20-year-olds every day. So osmosis is happening.
I'm doing God's work.
I honestly, it's so weird to feel so old at this stage in my life. Oh, I cannot keep up. I can't even imagine, 10 years from now. Like, I'm not gonna be able to keep up. For me, it's not necessarily a fandom that I haven't dove into yet. It's more one that I am diving more and more into, and that's D&D. Like, I'm hooked. I don't know what my life is gonna be now, a year from now. We're gonna have so many more dice in the house.
The dice collection's a slippery slope,
I know.
especially once you start attending conventions. Those things are everywhere.
I know. We were just at PAX and so many pretty things. I'm still working on the like actual role playing though. Like that part is still not really natural, but I have ideas. Anyway, I just really like rolling the dice and having consequences.
Yeah, it's a fun experience. That's another one I haven't spent a great deal of time in. Again, it's
You
a
could
time issue
join
though.
us.
I know yeah, maybe if I have time. Here we are again at the time problem.
I know.
Yeah, that's just like an example, like D&D, video games to an extent too, where it's like so communal, the fandoms, where it's like I feel like that's so beneficial, and to actually like I don't know. I remember thinking about it. It's like it kind of took the place of like I don't want to say neighbors, but it's like who talks to their neighbors anymore? But like you talk to your D&D groups, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have special nights with them, and it's just like there's something about society that we replaced, bringing Jello pie things to your neighbor or whatever those things are.
Whatever.
And so,
He's so out of it,
talking
he's
about
not even sure what he's trying to convey.
one of those Jello things is when you put a stapler in from the office.
Yeah,
The Jello.
Jello molds.
Yeah, you bring them
Oh
to your
gosh.
neighbors. Like nobody does that anymore. But now, like through like stuff like D&D or video game groups, that's like your communities. So I feel like fandoms like that are like a real substitute, especially like the active ones when you're doing things together.
I think I don't know. This I could be totally wrong, but I feel like it's for people who don't just want to like have chit chat like about the weather, about your kids, about like, what's happening in the news or something. And it's like having a facilitation to communicate with people that is more structured.
You reminded me, Panda. I definitely have a fandom I wish I could get into, but one, you need a little bit of time, but more importantly, you need friends, real life friends, like board games. I would
Yes.
love to like get deep into that. And I know like there's like game stores that you can go and they'll have like game nights, but that would be like I love the idea because there's so many. I feel like to me there's like these endless amount of like games now, and I know Ian in our Discord is big into it, but I would love to have like a weekly, once a night, go and try a
Yeah.
different game.
Yeah.
Yetti, PAX Unplugged is in Philadelphia.
Oh,
It's
He's
it's
been
all board
summoned.
games. It's a board game convention. This is
Wow.
doable. Maybe not this year, but next year.
All right, let me know. I'm in. Do you just play board games all the time at the convention?
I mean, they'll have like tutorials, like how to get into, how to play, da 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 da, and then they'll have like tournaments, and then they'll also have. It's basically like at PAX. You know how the video gaming section and then the
Mhm.
board game section. The board game section has just grown so much that it warrants its own like little convention.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Open
Board games are
play.
great. I have a. This is another trick of fandoms. Don't get too friendly with people that share a fandom with you in a big way. Get friendly with the people that are on the border of your smaller fandoms, so that then when you socialize, they can bring all their board games, and you don't have to pay a dime for them.
That is very good advice.
Because I have a friend who collects games like I collect action figures, and it is wonderful. I don't have to worry about it at all.
We literally so we were at one of Mr. Anderson's friend's birthday, and apparently for his birthday the present was everybody pull out your calendars, and we're all going to find a slot where we're all available, and we're going to play all these like Kickstarter backed board games that he uh, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of unopened games go to Goodwill in my time because
Oh man.
they backed just one too many.
Yeah. All right. So we're there. Let's talk about the conventions. Just in general, like why go? What to expect? How to have a successful con experience? How do you even get started? And why the four of us are on this particular episode is because we all have some sort of con experience. Yes, we're going to talk about WorldCon, but there are so many other conventions. We've already mentioned some, right? Like PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo, Comic Con, which there are regional Comic Cons. Seattle has a pretty good one, Emerald City Comic Con. Obviously, the biggest one is San Diego, but there are so many regional cons, which one of them is NorwestCon. Jingles has been attending for how long?
NorwestCon, I've only attended 1 year.
Oh, you've only attended 1 year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The one that I've attended the most by far is Emerald City, and I've been doing that for about 15 years.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, like just why attend cons? Let's start there.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, I honestly the reason I started attending conventions was because I wanted to see what something like San Diego, like just get an idea of what something like San Diego Comic Con would be without having to pay a lot of money.
Sure.
And at the time, like I think this was around 2010 when we decided to go to our first one, Emerald City Comic Con was not very big. It was at the
Mhm.
Seattle Convent or the Washington State Convention Center in Seattle. But like I want to say there were only a couple thousand people in attendance at
Mhm.
that time. Like the first year we went, Jason Momoa was there because he had just done Game of Thrones, and so he was a really big draw. But even being like one of the more popular people there, when we went to go get a picture with him, we walked right up to him, like no line, right? And so that gave me a good idea of what the experience was, and I enjoyed it enough to continue going. But as it grew, it actually started to resemble more what San Diego probably is, which is like just a very bustling entertainment sphere. And it's still great. I still love it, but it is a different experience overall. So
I started going because I wanted to meet the authors that I started reading, and it's like, oh, this is a cool way to be able to just like see them up close. And to me, that was even more appealing than like going to like the big Comic Cons to see like actors or things like that. I did that too. I remember going to New York Comic Con to see a panel of The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel.
nice.
So,
Wait, really?
oh yeah, John Rhys Davies. I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings, Vin Diesel, Fast Five.
The sequel.
That is
It's going to
ridiculous.
bring Michael Caine out of retirement.
It's so stupid. It really is the dumbest thing. But those are like Yeah, they're like more like everyone's getting dressed up, and it's cool because you're still fans of these things, but it's broader. Whereas like to me the sci-fi fantasy book conventions were so it's like okay, everyone loves these types of these books, and you can
Mhm.
get a bunch. You can actually talk to other people who have read the things I was reading or could give me recommendations. And this was before like I joined this Discord, so I didn't have that outlet. It was instead maybe going on Reddit or fantasy, and then it's not like an immediate back and forth. So just to be around so many people who um, also love like literally just sci-fi fantasy books and maybe horror, it's like, oh, this is amazing. And you could travel to like cool places for WorldCon.
An excuse too.
I know I said it jokingly, but honestly, why go conventions? I do kind of feel like is why not, right? Especially like the smaller regional ones, you can go for a day on the weekend. They're normally not that expensive, and it's a very different experience than you're going to get anywhere else. Regardless of what it is, whether it's an author convention, a video game convention, a Comic Con style convention, you're going to meet and interact with people in a very different way, even than online. Because
Mhm.
there's just this very communal aspect to it. Even like if you're at something even bigger, you're waiting in line to talk to or see someone more famous. The people around you are part of the same fandom. They like the same things, and you're going to have this, even just these small interactions with people that are going to be very interesting, very memorable. Not necessarily everyone, but a lot of them will just be, you'll just strike up a lot of interesting conversations, and then you get to go and meet whoever you're waiting in line for. And that's a whole other fun experience of just getting to say hi to famous author while they sign your book to Panda or whatever.
We'll talk about that later.
And maybe you go and you're like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't like the crowds. I don't, and that's fine. But I think it's hard to put into words what a convention is without going to experience one.
Yeah.
If I would try to explain to somebody, and we're not talking about necessarily like academic conventions or anything, but same thing can be applied to those, which is you're going to a place where it's a gathering of people who share some similar interests. It could be across a spectrum, but you are there to celebrate, to learn, to enjoy, to perhaps get first preview exposure to the thing that you're excited about. And at least for like the Comic Cons, PAX, WorldCon, one of the big draws, aside from obviously the famous people, is the expo hall, the
Mhm.
dealer's room, where you can go and see people's creativity. And so like for PAX, for example, the whole point of it is to interact with the games, right? A lot of these games are not out yet, they're still in development, the people are looking for feedback, and you can go and see what people are interested in, what people are making, what the trends are, what's upcoming. And just, yeah, like to Mr. Anderson's point, like you're going to have opportunities to engage with people that you just otherwise would not meet.
Yeah, just to add to that point, like Comic Cons, especially, the artist alley is by
Mhm.
far the biggest, busiest, coolest thing I have ever seen. Like just seeing what kind of love people put into all kinds of different fandoms and like being able to play kind of games and seeing like, okay, what was popular this year? What are people going to draw the most or what are people going to paint the most? And being like, oh, yep, there's another Shadowheart. There's another Asterion. Like, but still enjoying it in a if you're not buying the art to support it, at least showing your appreciation for it and getting an opportunity to like connect with these people on social media and things, if that's the best you can do monetarily, right?
Right.
It's a big bonding experience, and
Mhm.
you'll have a lot of fun time talking to people. We're not even getting into like the cosplay aspect of it all and the
Yeah.
interactions that come out of those. My partner and I have done some group cosplays in the past. Like we gathered 7 other friends and we all were ring wraiths. And that was
I've
like
seen
one
the
of the
photo. It's
yeah,
amazing.
it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I will never do it again because it was too much attention. I did not necessarily like how much attention I was getting, but it was
Okay.
still very cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to bring it up. People watching at these conventions is spectacular.
yeah,
Whether there's cosplay, even if there's no cosplay, just
Uh-huh.
people who are passionate about stuff tend to, particularly the very passionate people, tend to look very passionate, and it can be a lot of fun just to watch.
they emote a lot. There's a lot of or emotion being expressed.
Yes. Oh man, SakuraCon, which is the anime convention in Seattle, that's probably the most entertaining. Like just people's creativity and dedication into their costumes, like to recreate these things that some other person just thought up and bringing it to life. It's amazing. So, what would be your advice, like one piece of advice for people who are like, "Ugh, I'm interested, but I'm on the fence. How do I even get started?"
Find a more inexpensive local convention and go give it a try.
Yeah,
One where you don't have to
Absolutely.
take off work, you don't have to travel, and just go try it and see how you feel about it.
Yeah, most conventions will have day of passes. They do tend to be more expensive on the day, but if you're just going for one day, it's typically worth it to just get the day of pass if you're not so sure. And I would also say like a lot of conventions do post their programming online ahead of time. Some will cut it a little closer than others, but just take a look at, what the programming is and see if there are panels or exhibits, vendors that you may be interested in, and then form like a plan. Like these are the main things that I want to make sure I hit, and going into the convention with that plan.
Definitely go for like a local one first because you can always find local smaller ones. And it's just a cool community thing that like in your area that like, oh, these people are also into tabletop gaming or whatever. I would say also have just like a plan for yourself of like social situations. Like if like, hey, give yourself 30 minutes or whatever to go around. If you need to take a breather, you can step outside and just like decompress and just don't feel like you have to get everything and jump full board into it. You can like take little periodic gaps because I know a lot of times like the social part's not for everyone or it's hard to be around. Like sometimes there's just a lot of people, even at smaller cons I've been to. If the venues are a little smaller, sometimes they're in hotels and or convention centers if they're big enough. But just give yourself some space to just take a break or even call it a day. Like even if you're like, oh, I only can go for an hour this time because that's enough. That's still you're still dipping your toes in.
yeah, absolutely. And then once you're ready to get into the bigger conventions, if that is something you want to start pursuing, just be prepared to be dishing out a lot of money, because those passes can be kind of expensive. And then also be prepared to be buying way in advance. They're usually announcements of when these passes go on sale, and usually, especially if we're talking like the height, like Dragon Con, um, San Diego, New York, these are all things that you need to be buying like day of release. So just be prepared for that.
And like lodging and stuff, like
Yeah.
you have to be prepared that like they're going to jack up the prices because they know things are in town, or just I know Jordan Con has like a hotel block. They start selling early, so it does help to kind of research a little bit the con you're going to and trying to just see what you have to do. But yeah, they can be expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that being said, like it is up to you, the individual, like, what your budget is. There typically is going to be a con that will likely fit in your budget. And some people do save up. Like this is their one thing that they want to do every year or every couple years. And, it's that special for them. But there are a lot of regional local cons where it is more accessible. And then also see if the con has any sort of like fan fund, like some sort of financial aid type of situation, because some of these do have that as well.
Also, if you're looking at a fandom like specifically, the larger conventions are really good for just a huge smattering of things. Like if you have a very large variety of things you want to check out, that's great. A lot of the smaller cons I've found actually pretty exceptional in like panels and things. Like Crypticon here in Seattle is a really great horror convention and a place where you're not necessarily going to see the types of panels there that you would see at like something like Emerald City. So
Yeah,
be
that's
ready.
true.
Like if you have a very specific thing that you want to go for, check it out.
Yeah, I feel very spoiled because in Seattle there are so many cons.
So many.
So many, and, there are a lot of small ones, and they're quite accessible, so I do feel very fortunate. But I think, like, Chicago also has quite a few. The New York area also has quite a few.
I feel like it really anywhere. Like even, I mean, I live in New Hampshire now, and they have like a New Hampshire Comic Con, which is cool. And you'll even have some celebrities come. Like last year, we met what's his name? Ernie Reyes Jr. He's in like
Oh, nice.
Ninja Turtles 2, like Kino and Surf Ninjas. But but they even have like even smaller one, like a Ninja Turtles con, because the Ninja Turtles were created in New Hampshire. So it's like I'm
Mm,
sure each state has their own. Like obviously,
yeah,
Maine has like Stephen King stuff from time to time. But so you can like I feel like the big states obviously have a lot, but even the smaller states I bet have
yeah.
their own little stuff.
Going into questions. Oh, actually, talking about cosplay earlier, apparently the first documented instance of fan costuming was at the first WorldCon in 1939.
Oh,
It was basically like two people who were dressing as like futurists, like in futurist outfits.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What was futuristic wear like in the 1930s? I can only go
Silver
back as far as the
jumpsuits.
50s. Yeah.
what did she
Gr-
say? Zoot suits?
Silver jumpsuits. I
Jumpsuits.
like zoot
Silver
suits, but I
jumpsuits.
think that's better.
Silver jumpsuits. You know what? Great question. I haven't found a photo, but maybe we could try to find it. But yeah, it's got a long history, and obviously it's evolved a lot since then. Soul did ask a question: Is what do you look for when attending a panel? Does anybody have an answer for that one?
I have like an order. One, it's like if it's one of my favorite authors that I want to see is on it. I'll see like it if it's Robin Hobbs on a panel, I won't really care what the topic's about. You know what I mean? I'll be like, that's first and foremost what I want to go to. The second would be like topic, like what they're discussing, and if it interests me. And I know WorldCon has so many to choose from, and it's like an overabundance. And then third, I might be a little weird this way, but I try to fit as many as I can in. So like I try to match up the times. So it's like, oh, I'll go to this one if I can, let me out at a certain time that I can get to another one. So I kind of like
Yeah.
try to stack them as well. So I look for how feasible it is to make another one and in my priority list. So, but yeah.
This doesn't work 100% of the time, but I find it works more often than not. If you see something that's weird, that's only like tangentially related to what else is happening at the con, go to that because it's probably something where the presenter's very passionate about it and it's going to be a lot of fun to listen to. Again, not all the time, but most of the time, that's what I found.
60% of the time it works every
Works
time.
every time. That's what for the larger conventions I do pretty much keep to celebrity and author panels just because they're really like I like to spend a day walking around the entire floor and get an idea of what's going on.
Hmm.
And then by the time I'm looking at the panels, gonna be perfectly honest, I've been kind of burned by a lot of the bigger convention panels. They end up kind of being big nothing burgers. I'm sorry.
Mm,
But going to the celebrities can be fun, and going to the book authors is a ton of fun.
yeah.
For the smaller conventions, I usually try to find it really is just based on topic. If I think
Hmm.
the topic is really interesting, then I'll go to that panel. Sometimes that's hit and miss, but
Yeah. Actually, so this is a good transition to like talking about WorldCon. So in 2025, WorldCon was in Seattle. And so Mr. Anderson and myself, we decided we would attend because it's in our backyard. Like it would be stupid not to.
hey,
I'm sorry, Jingles. You had other commitments.
I
Okay. Otherwise,
did.
I
I know.
know for sure you would have been there. The convention, so just like real quick fire takeaways from my experience was I was so surprised at how many freaking panels and workshops and readings they had. And I was like, this is not that many people because it was like forecasted around like 5,000 people attending. Compare that to something like Comic Con or PAX, which is like tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people. But I think the format is different in that the main point is author signings, the panels, or the like dealer's room. And the dealer's rooms is nowhere near as big as like PAX, for example. And so they did have a lot of programming. And I was like, are there just going to be a bunch of panels where it's like one person or no people? But no, like every single panel reading we went to, there was like the room was pretty full. And so that was surprising to me. The number of author signing opportunities, at least for the Seattle one, was quite a lot. It was kind of intense how many there were. And I think, Yeti, you said this before, the barrier between the fan and the creator, like the authors, it was like almost non-existent. I mean, obviously there are some where it's like they're not quite as available, but a lot of them were just walking the halls and attending panels just like everybody else. Somebody we were chatting with in line, he was just like, yeah, because like a lot of these authors, they started out as fans. They started attending WorldCon as fans. I was in the bathroom washing my hands. Martha Wells was right there. I awkwardly walked in the same direction as John Scalzi and trying to not be, a creeper. And it was just like such a fun experience and kind of eye-opening because it also highlighted more of the industry professionals like artists and editors. And I think that is one area that WorldCon could do a better job at is highlighting editors and who they are, what their contributions were to certain books or whatever. Because I feel like they're kind of like underselling the or underutilizing the editors. Table talks, that's where that coffee talk thing that you were talking about, Yeti, being able to sign up for like a small group discussion interaction with a particular author. That was amazing. I was fortunate enough to do 2 of them, and they were both great.
Those are my favorite for sure. I mean, that's like one of the best parts, I think, because you can run into authors and stuff at the con, but it's kind of happenstance too. And it's like, what am I gonna be next to the urinal and say, hey, Joe, what's up? Like,
I mean, why not?
where it's like, yeah, where like, those coffee things are so cool because it's only like 5 or 6 people are allowed to sign up or however many. And like, you just all chat while having like tea or coffee and like about whatever. And I've been on ones where like some person just like dominates the conversation. It's like,
Sure.
okay, buddy, like you gotta, there's social
Mhm.
awareness with you. But yeah, just I remember quick story. I was at Boscone, which is a Boston-based one, and I went to one of those coffee things with Paul Tremblay, who's like a horror
Oh,
author,
wow.
and I went like 3 years in a row, and he remembered me every year, and it's just kind of cool. It's just like, hey, what's up? And he obviously remember my name. He's like, hey, but it's just like to get that feeling from an author like you read, and you never would have thought like that would happen.
Right.
It's just like this is nuts. I don't know. In our small world, that's like crazy and like kind of feels good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I mean, there are like a bunch of authors that unfortunately like didn't have enough signups. Like people just didn't really know who they were. So it was also interesting like looking through the list of like who are these people and getting exposure to all these new authors. The quality of panels definitely varied. Part of it was like there were so many panels and some topics were a bit duplicative. And so at that point, it really depends on who is on the panel. And what I have found is if Shauna McGuire is on a panel, go to that panel. Because
Nice.
whatever it is, it will be entertaining and it will be informative. I don't know, Mr. Anderson, did you want to add anything?
Um, no, that probably just about covers it. It's so there'd be a lot of times where Panda'd be standing in line for someone and say, "Okay, you go get like these other people while I wait." And it's just this weird experience going up to these authors. I don't necessarily know who they are, and talking to them, be like, "Okay, can you assign this to Panda?" And you get some interesting reactions to that.
Okay,
Um,
to clarify. So,
Errand boy.
okay, what I found was at each of the autograph signing like sessions, right? Because it's not just like one author, it's like a whole slew of authors.
Right.
there's typically one or two fairly big authors that would have the longer lines. And so if you want to have anything signed or meet them, right, you're going to have to wait in the line. And so there were also other authors that I was like, it would be nice. And Mr. Anderson's like, I can go and get the thing signed by those other authors.
Perks of having two people there. I
Yeah.
will, if I can tell a quick story. And I guess like if you go to these events, it's good to have books for them to sign. And like you said, at the
Right.
dealers, you can buy them and things like that. But my first one, I went to London for WorldCon, and I was kind of on a tight budget because I paid to go to London, and like I mixed up with a trip. And on the airport in London, while I was going there, Brandon Sanderson was at the same airport. I saw him posted on Twitter. He's like, I'm signing a bunch of Words of Radiances, and I signed this one copy of Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. Oh my god, this is? Well, you're never gonna find this ever. So I ran to that gate out of my gate and grabbed it, the Joe Abercrombie book and the Brandon Sanderson one. Though I think I gave that to someone, donated that to someone. But and at WorldCon, I had this book signed by Joe Abercrombie, but it wasn't, or by Brandon Sanderson, but it was Joe Abercrombie's book. So I was going around getting it signed.
Oh
I
my
got it
god.
signed by Joe Abercrombie. And then Pat Rothfuss was next to him. He's like, "Is that someone else's signature in there?" And I was like, "Oh, Brandon Sanderson." And Joe Abercrombie knew it because he got tagged in Sanderson's
Yeah.
post. So he's like, and Pat's like, "Here, give it to me. I'll add to it." And then like I started going around to other authors, but I felt at the time I was like, "Oh, this is so cool. I'm gonna have a whole thing." But then I'm thinking like, it's kind of a dick move. Like I'm not even using their books. Like Brent Weeks, I'm like, "Can you sign it?" I think they all knew Joe, so I think it was funny. But I would. My point is, be prepared with their book. I don't do what I did. But
Actually, so something that I have learned, and I actually did do this myself because there was no way that I was going to tow like 30 books, even though I'm local, and going like across multiple days and people are traveling. So people have found different ways. There's typically a souvenir book for the WorldCon, so people will have them sign that. This year was like a little passport thing where you like go around finding the Space Needle and there will be stamps. People had them sign that. Just bring your own autograph book, and people can sign it. They can even write little messages. If you really wanted to, you could bring like book plates for them to sign, and then you can put it in your books after the fact. So there are creative ways, and it doesn't have to cost you a ton of money to do that.
the autograph books made me remember. You remember if anyone's gone to Disney World when they're kids, but
Yep.
you just huck
Yeah.
this thing around to the mascots. It's some part
Yep.
timer, the beard, scraggly beard under there, signing as John Hancock. We're going around getting goofy
Donald
signatures.
Duck,
Donald, that's so stupid.
Daisy Duck.
But yeah,
I
I don't know.
That's where we
Maybe
got the idea from. Because Panda was like, I can't bring all these books. And I said, well, when I was young in Disney, we brought an autograph book. Do you have something you can use for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it works. And they're honestly they're used to it by now. Unless obviously like if there's an author that you really really love and you want to support, get their book and have them sign it. Oh, something that more specific to WorldCon that stood out from all the other cons I've been to was the demographics of the
Mm.
attendees. And I don't know if this you noticed this, Yeti, but they did the average age tend to be a bit older. And
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I wouldn't say there's a bunch of like teenagers or something run around, or it definitely felt. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so there were these people that we met who have been attending Worldcon for decades, like since the 50s, since the, 60s, and it was fascinating to learn about like the culture of Worldcon and how like what the room parties were. Like there are specific people who go every year and they're known for the parties that throw. John Scalzi DJs one of his own parties, and it's an open invite. And they even have fan awards at Worldcon for like biggest fan contribution to the community. It was just fascinating, and just because it was our first Worldcon, and we got the little badge ribbon that says first Worldcon, and people were so excited. They're like, "Oh, this is your first one. How are you finding it?" Da, da, da. Everybody was so nice. It was just so joyful, I think is the word, to be like learning about this. I mean, I know that it's got its problems. WorldCon has its own set of controversies and issues along with the Hugos. And it is a society. That's the thing. WorldCon is being put on by the World Science Fiction and Fantasy Society, and that aspect really does bring a different flavor to the convention than say like a Comic-Con or a PAX, where they have business meetings. They have reports that they will report on and announce on, the statistics. And because it's also an award ceremony, there's like the ritual and like the administrative part of that. And then there's the bidding of the location of like the next Worldcon, etc. So there is like this whole other aspect to it that I just was not aware of.
Yeah, I think for those unaware, WorldCon is like it doesn't you don't have to go there for this, but it's a huge networking thing. I mean, I think a lot of authors got, signed or got their work out there because they met. I mean, there's editors and all different types of people who go there because they get awards, best editor and things like that. So like a lot of the people who work at the publishers are there, and but you wouldn't even know it. Like I remember as Panda alluded to, a lot of it is social and drinking social, like at the bars or in the room parties. But I was at a bar just talking to one of the some guy who happened to be like an editor at the tour.com publishing,
Mm,
who did, his name's Justin Langdon, I think. And he was just inquiring after we talked and we were drinking. He's like, "Are you a writer?" I said, No. But like you're networking without even talking, like thinking
yeah.
about it. It's just how it is.
BarCon is a thing at WorldCon. That's what
Right.
they call it.
Archon, yeah. So that is like a huge, also just a reason if you're a prospective writer, like I think it's almost invaluable if you want to write in that world to go to these.
Yeah, the exposure.
I think NorwestCon kind of matches that tone. Funny enough, not as
Mhm.
much networking maybe because it's a little bit smaller, but one of the first things we noticed when we walked in was like we were the only people in the 30 to 40 range, probably. Like everyone's
Oh.
either above or was actually quite below. Um,
Oh, interesting.
and yeah, so that was kind of an interesting juxtaposition. But then, like Crypticon, you go in and it's all a bunch of Gen Xers and millennials that are just getting trashed. But yeah,
Yeah.
totally different experience. But yeah, it was interesting to see. Just I wonder if if it's book related. The fact that we're going to a place dedicated to books carries a bit of an older audience with it. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
I think it's also just like the finances, like people who are more
Yeah,
retired, who have the time, the means to travel because it does move around the
it does
world
move. Yeah,
every
that's true.
year. And then I think it's also like these are people who that was the other thing was how much history. Like for us, we kind of take it for granted that science fiction and fantasy is so readily available.
Yeah,
But for a lot of these people, they were there or like they were very young when science fiction and fantasy was getting started. And that's just like so hard for my brain to wrap around. But it was like they have such nostalgic uh feelings towards like certain authors and what type of science fiction they enjoy, etc. And that really showed in some of the panels when they're talking about people who have worked with John Campbell and like Asimov and Heinlein, and they have like personal anecdotes and stories about like interacting with these people. For us, they're like, they're kind of dead white dudes of the past, but for them, they're like, "Yeah, these were people that I knew."
this guy was my coworker until the 50s. Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
cool to be part of that history kind of by going there. Like you do feel the weight of it a little bit where it's like, oh yeah, this has been going on a while and I'm now just in a link of chains of going to these.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely like no fear of them dying anytime soon. It's gonna thrive for a while, I think.
The cons, you mean?
Yeah, any of them.
The old white
WorldCon.
men.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, being a link in this long chain, technically, the Green Team podcast could be nominated for a Hugo.
True.
Just
We just
saying.
got to start, putting it out though. We got to start running, putting ads out.
All jokes aside, though, but it was fascinating to learn about that there's a category of best fan cast for the Hugos, And we do qualify. We're not a professional. We do not earn income whatsoever from this podcast. We do talk about science fiction and fantasy. We are fans. So I think we check all the boxes. Maybe one day, who knows? If
Hey,
listeners you're
put it
interested
out
in
there.
supporting us in that way, we would love that.
What about us going on a panel?
Oh
That's the
man.
other thing is, yes, they do put out open calls for panelists, and we absolutely can taking our, one of our draft episodes or Mount Rushmore kinds of formats and or come up with a brand new format, or if individual panelists want to, submit and talk about it. There's also a virtual experience. I don't know if it's available at every WorldCon, but you don't have to physically be there to participate.
Can you imagine Kipton on a Terra Ignata panel? Getting
Him and
chills
Ada
just
Do
thinking about
Palmer.
it.
it. Yeah,
Oh
with
my
Ada
goodness.
Palmer.
Let's
Yes,
make it happen.
Heaven
make it
help me.
happen. We're doing it.
So speaking of the literary awards, there's like Hugos and Locus and Nebula. Those are typically the big three in science fiction and fantasy. And then I've seen like Dragon Con, their own Dragon Awards is kind of like coming up. But we got some questions about like why Chesky asks like why do or should we care about awards? Like why should these matter? Do we care about them?
We shouldn't. I don't. This is my answer. Like I never went to the WorldCon because of the Hugos. Like if I cared about them, I mean, it's cool to
Uh-huh.
see the ceremony there, but I would say it matters to the people I think writing the books because it can help with sales. It can help with promotion for your next book and things like that. I think that's super important for them when it's hard to just get your book out there, let alone whatever the quality is. Like the biggest part when writing a book or selling a book is just getting it out to people to see it, like to make them aware of it.
Right.
So it's huge for that. But as I don't know, as readers, like you said, there's so many award Dragon Con. I remember signing up for that like 8 years ago, and I still get emails about make sure you vote. I'm like, what? So the barrier.
The Hugo Award can be kind of difficult, right? Because it can be a little bit more of maybe a popularity contest.
We'll
And I
get
don't really
into
mean,
that.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really mean that as a bad thing. Just more like my perception of it is that these are pretty popular authors that are getting the recognition at times.
Yeah.
But like for NorwestCon, they have the Philip K. Dick Award, which is an
Mhm.
award that's issued to someone who released a paperback that year,
Mm.
specifically a science fiction or fantasy paperback that year. And I found like there are definitely like famous names in there, like Adrian Tchaikovsky was in there this year, and I think he did win, but for Alien Clay. But I did walk away with four other books by four other authors that I have never heard of up until I went to that convention.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I have not read any of them yet, but I intend to. And I value that piece. I do value like finding something that maybe I missed for whatever reason. Like maybe they aren't that popular of an author because this is their first book or whatever. So
Mhm.
I do value them for that reason, if only to help sort out all, like you said, Panda, all of the stuff that's coming at us now.
Yeah.
Just trying to get some sort of structure to it.
Right.
And it might be different for those of us who are more plugged into this. But if you're kind of removed from the book side of things and you're just looking to pick up a science fiction or fantasy book, we may have all heard of the Tainted Cup like well before this. But if you're
Right.
just browsing the shelves and see, oh, this won the Hugo, let me try that. Like it may be more useful for that than those of us who are more in the know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I'm gonna be honest. I know the Tainted Cup exists only because of Drew. I'm like flat out. I would have never heard of this book. I don't think, unless it maybe came up on the Discord a couple other times.
And
But
I wonder, do they put like Hugo winner on the books after they win? Like I don't even
Yeah.
remember. They do? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, they totally do. So definitely for marketing purposes. Bookstores, it's a way for them to highlight, right, certain books and push sales, and I think that's great for them too. But let's talk about it. Okay, so how do these awards work? So I did some research. Like I said, so the Hugo Awards is connected to WorldCon, which is connected to the World Science Fiction and Fantasy Society. So it is a paid membership to join that society. It's $50 per let's call it per year, but like per year you want to participate. But there's no other like requirement. Like you don't need to be an author. You could have read the books or not read the books. There's no way to really like filter people. So it's really like, are you willing to pay the fee to join the society? If you are, then you get voting rights. There are other ways that you could get voting rights, but I'm not going to get into them too much. If people are curious, I'll link the resources in the show notes. But basically, the Hugo Awards are voted upon by the members of the society, $50 paid membership. Members can nominate, and the top nominees make it on the final ballot. And it is rank choice voting to an extent. It's basically that. So you can put one nominee on the ballot. You could put up to 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly. And then the eligible voting members will receive a packet of the nominees. They'll include like the links to like the short stories or whatever. It gets you the materials. And then the eligible voting members can cast their vote. And then the results are announced at the Hugo Award ceremony during WorldCon. So that's how the Hugos work. Locus Awards, it is magazine subscription. So there are 2 parts to this. Locus is a magazine, and they do allow anybody to vote for the Locus Award. But if you are an annual subscriber, your vote is counted double. Your vote is more weighted. You do have to sign up on their website in order to vote, but aside from that, there is no barrier to voting. So if anything, like what is a popularity contest, it's probably that, to
Yeah.
be honest. The awards are presented at a live awards banquet, and then, they honor the publishers, and I guess their thing is like they have an official certificate that they will present to the winners, whereas the Hugo Awards, it's like this trophy thing, and it has a different base every con. Anyway, the Nebula Awards, though, this is probably the one that's most restrictive because you need to be a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association. So if you want to say what is the most technical of the awards, it would probably be this one where it's actually authors voting for the awards. But yeah, that's the difference between the 3.
Okay. Interesting. Come at very different ways of trying to get those out, which was great. I think it's
Yeah, the Locus
important.
Awards initially was more like to help people figure out the nominees, like do the reading for the Hugo Awards, but then it kind of just took a life of its own and became its own award. Yeah. The other thing that I find fascinating is the stats, the reports, at least for the Hugos, and I believe Nebula and Locus, they also publish these, is the stats for the nominations and for the votes. And what you will see from the stats, at least for the Hugos, is certain categories don't actually get that many votes or nominations. And it could just be like one vote that, decides the whole
It's all the
thing.
difference.
Yeah.
That's all
So
we need.
it is really interesting. And if any listeners are interested in becoming more involved, engaging with science fiction and fantasy in this way, resources will be in the show notes. But it's just a different side of things where, I thought that the Hugo Awards were like determined by a panel of judges. Never did I think that I could help determine the results of the Hugo Awards.
You are the judge.
Watch, one of these days, Brandon Sanderson is going to like win another Hugo Award. He
Oh,
has won one, right? Didn't he
uh,
win for Emperor's Soul?
he won. Yeah,
Yeah.
Emperor's Soul. Yeah, that was the
Okay.
one Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll win again. I believe it'll happen.
All right. Any other thoughts about the literary awards? Any other thoughts about the whole episode?
I remember I like the Reddit Fantasy used to have, or I don't know if they still do, the stabbies. I always thought was cool.
Oh,
the
yeah.
awards. And they actually made like an actual like dagger to send to, I think, didn't the Legendarium podcast win one?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. You just upvote who you want to win. So I don't know if people make burner accounts. I know I definitely plug the Legendarium a lot when that happened. I don't want to give myself all the credit, but I definitely think I
But I
nominated
definitely
him.
cheated.
Yeah, I know. It was rigged. I'm admitting it now.
I think to the point of these awards, if anything, it's a nice excuse of a way to celebrate science fiction and fantasy and the people that make it.
Yeah, celebrate the community, yeah.
Yeah, and also the people who enjoy it. Like, it's just a really, yes, there's controversies and some are less professional in their execution than others, but it is a way to acknowledge and honor the people that make such big contributions to continue the legacy of science fiction and fantasy for future generations.
Amen.
All right. So with that, thank you, Mr. Anderson, Jingles, Yetti. I know this was a long chat, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk about fandom, conventions, literary awards. And if anybody else is interested in any of these kinds of topics, come and join our Discord. Happy to chat there. And who knows, maybe one day we will have a Legendarium meetup at one of these conventions.
Let's make it
Maybe.
Can't wait. We're doing it. Anaheim 2026. Let's go.
happen.
And with that, until next time, bye.
Bye.
Adios.
See ya.
We all know what we want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just here for the vibes.
Just here for the
Oh,
vibes.
Vibes. Last time we got together like this, I won a draft.
Come on.
Oh, wow.
Nothing official that says that. A few wrong opinions on the Discord is all.
Way to rub it in. Excuse
Apparently,
you.
no one liked my picks, and all I can say is tough.
That's true. We can all agree on that. Mr. Anderson got destroyed.
That was
I
fun.
thought you had good picks. I'm not.
I liked my picks. That's why I picked them.
Yeah, I didn't realize we had so many Dune haters in the Discord. What's going on?
They're all
What's happening to the world?
they're
I
all
don't
scared
know.
to speak up, but they need a leader like me to say it's okay. Let it out.
It's acceptable. It can happen.
Yeah.
All right. What are we talking about today?